Hey everyone, welcome. I'm Kirsten and that's Jeanne right there. Well, today we're so excited because we're going to talk to Marla about course creation. This is perfect for you if you have already created a course, but maybe you're not getting the testimonials and the reviews and people aren't finishing your course and they aren't becoming raving fans and sending you referrals. Or maybe you're in a position where you want to create a course, but you're just not sure how to go about doing that. And so Marla comes from an amazing background in education, and she's going to talk with you about just all kinds of information on how to create a fantastic course and how to get wonderful reviews.
The one thing that I hear the most when I'm talking with clients is I don't know where to start, or I want to do a high ticket course where it's more than just an online course, but it includes coaching and all. And so I want to make sure it's worth it. And how do I make sure that it's worth it? Then I hear people say, well, I started with 10 people, but then we kind of ended up with 4. So where do we lose them? And all of that can really be solved in the course. What do you guys think? Where do you think people find the most challenge?
Okay, so Jeanne and I have kind of been creating courses for about like a decade. I think course creation programs are just a great way to learn, especially for entrepreneurs. But we have taken some courses that you're like, this is total crap, right? We paid money for this and it just didn't deliver. And they didn't deliver outcomes. We've also taken some courses that were actually really great courses, but they were still hard to follow. It was great information, but it was just frustrating because it wasn't laid out in the way we learn. I think most of us as entrepreneurs, we know how to teach what we know how to teach, but we don't have an educational background. We don't understand how the mind works.
Right. My approach to it is the course map. So there is all the processing of what information you need to give them and what can you leave, because a lot of times it's overwhelming because we're just giving so much information or information you're not ready for. It's just kind of learning where people are and kind of how to meet them where they are. And that course mapping really helps to do that, but also to align everything that you're promising in your transformation and getting your client success, and not just information that you're including along the way that you think they need to know, because it's just overwhelming. So is your course worth what you're charging for it? For that, the transformation that you're promising, is that really defined? That should really thread, but it spirals through, it's the common thread through all of those modules and sections, because if it's not, it's disconnected. And if it's disconnected, does it need to be there? And by mapping this course out, you're forced to write what are the top 3 to 5 new pieces of information that you're going to give in each section. And not only are you just going to give it to them, but it forces you to think through what do they need to be able to do with it. And if they don't need to be able to do anything with it, does it really need to be in there? So the content mapping of the course really just helps confirm that you are delivering on that transformation that you're promising. You're not just getting information, and you are delivering and charging what you're worth.
Well, Marla, can you tell us what is the difference between a course map and an outline?
As you know, with your course, we started with the outline, right? And then I think that's a good place to start to kind of flesh things out. And then we start plugging it into a spreadsheet so that you can really analyze where the gaps and redundancies are. So if I'm looking in a row of the knowledge that I need people to know, I'm going to be able to see that fluid all the way through from left to right. And then if I'm looking at the skills that I'm asking them to do, I'm looking at from left to right. So it helps you take each piece. What is it that you need them to know? What is the transformation that you're promising? What do they need to be able to do? What is that evidence of understanding? How do you know when they get it? And the questions that you're using, it allows you to analyze your course in a different way so that you can see how it is moving and progressing and where the gaps and redundancies are.
Yeah, absolutely. So we know that they got it. We know that they understand it because they performed a task or answered questions that let us know that they understand it. So we don't really have to go back to it at all. We can just keep building on that knowledge.
Right. Because new knowledge is attached to prior knowledge. So it's your opportunity to create a prior knowledge so that the brain then knows what to do with the new knowledge. And I intentionally use the word redundancy and not repetitive, because repetition is good. Redundancy is not. And by mapping out your course in a way that allows you to analyze it differently, I think is what helps me to do that. When you're talking about social proof and what you want your students or clients to say about your course. I mean, we all know the way to get more clients and help more people is to have someone else say how you helped them. So we teach people how to treat us. I like to have course creators start with writing a review of their own course and breaking it down and being very specific. What do you want them to say? Because the quality of a review, that varies. Just to say, oh, it was a great course, I learned a lot, doesn't really help in signing other clients. But if I say, I took Jeanne and Kirsten's course and it helped me hire 5 VAs, scale my business, and I was able to work less and make more money. That's the review I want. Because when someone else reads that, then they're going to say, yeah, that's what I need to do. No one takes a course just because it's a great course. They take a course because they know they can get the transformation that someone's promising.
Right. That was something you introduced to us, which I think is really the next step in, you know exactly who your ideal client is, know exactly what problem you solve for them and what that transformational statement is, and then write the review. And so that was really eye-opening for us, especially since we know that people, in order to have transformation, they generally need to take action, right? I don't know about you, Jeanne, but I think that was just something that was really just game-changing.
Yeah, it was definitely eye-opening. The other thing I think is Kirsten and I, like she said earlier, we kind of tend to be wordy sometimes, and we want to give you all the deep history behind something because it's so cool and exciting to us, when really you just needed to know the step and maybe why, and that's it, move on.
It's up to us as course creators to create that filing system for them. And then as you have new pieces of information, it has to connect to something. That also keeps them engaged, which leads me into questioning, because that's another thing that I find a lot of course creators or entrepreneurs do is they have a recorded presentation of information instead of a real transformation product. And so questioning is a really good way to do this. And there are a couple of different kinds of questions. You need to choose questions that all are what we call essential questions, and they don't have a right or wrong answer. They're just more something to make you think. So they might be a different answer for everyone. How would you do this differently in whatever the topic is? And everybody would answer that differently because they're going to build on their own experiences, but they're taking the knowledge that you've given them and they're transferring it to their own situation. That's learning. Then I'm going to ask a question about future self. What does your life look like once you've hired 5 VAs and you've scaled your business? What are you doing? And it forces me to think about myself after I've implemented everything that you've taught me. And in my mind, I'm there. That's marketing. The other piece is if I'm talking to you like right now and I'm giving you information, I'm going to interrupt that pattern because it's going to make you be more engaged. And I say, how would you do that? Now you're taking in information in a way to give it back, whether you're going to say it out loud, write it down, or just keep it to yourself. The intake of information is different from me telling you something and me asking you something. And so being able to integrate those into a presentation of information is important.
I love that.
But there's a chart that you have, it talks about when to make those questions happen and how long people's attention spans are.
That's just a way of thinking of pattern interrupts. That's the same thing with television, right? We know how long we have, and then there's a commercial or 3 to 5 commercials, and we know how long they're going to be, and it changes every time it switches, right? So we need to create those switches in our videos or presentations. So I'm going to show you 2 graphs, a 20-minute learning episode and a 40-minute learning episode, and then I'm going to show you another one that compares the 2. Okay, and it's going to show you what you need to be doing in what time. So this is the 20-minute learning episode, and the degree of retention is here on this x-axis, or is that y? And then this is the minute. So the 20 minutes.
Minutes is the x, the degree is
the y. So the first 2 minutes is when you're still getting people's attention. And then you have it for about another, let's say, call it 10 minutes. And then the retention starts to drop. So this time in a 20-minute learning episode, between say 12 and 16 minutes, we'll call it ish, then this is when you need to switch how you're presenting. So maybe you're delivering 3 points in the first 12 minutes, and then you're switching it and you're asking questions about it. They don't have to answer, they don't have to write anything down, they just have to maybe think differently. or that's when you give an action item. And then you come back in that last little prime time, that little second hill there. If the downtime is the valley and the second hill is the prime time too. So you basically have 2 opportunities there to give new information. That's when you restate what you've already given them in a way that transfers it to their own situation. You don't want to be redundant, you want to be repetitive. So it's a matter of giving that information in a different way. So this is 20-minute, then this is a 40-minute learning episode. So you actually have less prime time in a 40-minute learning episode than you do in a 20-minute learning episode. You have more downtime, more valley, it's more difficult in a 40-minute episode. We were just talking about this. How long should a webinar be? This is actually a really good example of how you might structure a webinar based on this. This is not mine. I got this from Dr. David Sousa, who is a brain research guy. It's called the primacy recency effect. You can Google it. It's all over the internet. This is not something that I invented.
This is also effective even if your course is recorded. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be live for you to say, hey, pick up a pencil and write down these 3 things. It can still be recorded. You just have to stop and turn their attention to something else, right?
Yes. Reframe what you're saying, just something to interrupt the pattern that is connected to what you're doing.
And I think that's awesome. When you think about a module, it is actually easier to have like little 20-minute or 18-minute sections than it is to record a full 40 minutes. So as far as a course creator goes, it's easier to bring the energy and the training to a 20-minute module than it is to a 40 or 80-minute module.
The dopamine factor, it gives you an end. We like to check things off. We like to, when you're going through a video game or some other kind of game, you like to get to the next level. So it's almost like a next level. As a course creator, we should be painting that picture.
Would you recommend that they're shorter than that, or does it just depend on the content?
It definitely depends on the content. It depends on where in the module it is. Do they already have the prior knowledge? Because content can be a little bit subjective. How complex is it? Is it new? Is it something you've talked about before? Do they know where it fits? So it depends where they are. But I think all of these go back to, is your course worth what you're charging for it?
Yeah,
absolutely. I think the other thing that's been amazing for us is we get so many referrals. So for people that come into our program, I just told Jeanne right before we jumped on here, hey, we got another referral from so-and-so. And so I think when you actually deliver on your promise, you create that transformation and you do that in a way that is helpful to people, it makes it easy for them, they're going to refer you left and right. And so I think that's what makes the biggest difference, I think, in building your business. Having those Google reviews, having those great testimonial videos, and then having these raving fans out, handing out your information to people and saying, you've got to call them.
Yeah.
So if someone wants to come to you who has not created a course yet, do you want them to already have their outline for their course done? Where do you want them in the process of thinking about a course before they reach out to you?
Well, it's obviously easier if you already have sort of the idea, but a lot of times people don't know where to start, and I can do that too. I have a brain dump session that I do with people to help create that outline. So if you're not sure what goes where, it's okay. If you already have an outline, then what I do is I walk you through a process of just thinking through it with a different lens. And then once you get that, we plug it into the spreadsheet so that you can see it as a spectrum and make sure that it is delivering on the promise that you're offering.
Awesome.
She's asking about how to price her course.
I think it depends on a lot of different factors. It could depend on how long is your course and what you're providing them, but really it's more based on the value that you're giving them. I think, what is it that they are going to be able to do with your course at the end, and how does that impact their life or livelihood in a way? What is it worth to them?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. It really is about the transformation. And I know sometimes people think, obviously we're in the business market, B2B, and so we're helping business owners with their marketing and hiring a marketing virtual assistant. So people will often say, oh, it's easier for you. But we have a lot of clients and a lot of friends who are selling mindset courses and things like that, and relationship courses. So it really depends on the value that the person who's taking your course puts on that transformation. So in other words, if I'm single. And if you're selling a relationship course and the transformation is you're going to fall in love with yourself. And because of that, you're going to end up attracting the right partner. And then you're going to have this amazing lifelong relationship with this amazing partner. If that's a top priority for me, that course has a lot of value. I think the other thing that's really important is, like Marla said, time is important. And especially since COVID and everybody's been online so much, attention spans are going down, down, down. We were talking a while back about when email newsletters first came out. You could just put on your website, sign up for my email newsletter, and people would just sign up by the droves. And your email newsletter could be pages and pages and pages, and people are excited about it. Now you have to give someone something of true value to get their email address, and you better deliver whatever you're delivering in a short little burst so that they can get something out of it or they'll stop opening your emails. I think it's the same thing for a course. It's not about how long it is, it's about what is the transformation of that course. And then when it comes to pricing, I think there's 3 things to take into consideration. First of all, is it just a recorded course? Because we're starting to see more and more people saying they're tired of courses. Now, don't panic, because I think this industry is still going to grow exponentially. I think there's tons of room for people to grow. But is there a live component to it? Are you going to do live group coaching calls? Is any of the work done for them? What is your course bringing to the table? As you start getting feedback from people, you can improve what you're doing and make it better and better and better.
And you are learning a lot from them, and you're developing it based on them, and they're a very integral part of it. So yes, that's all important facts.
What would you guys consider like high ticket or low ticket pricing wise?
Free is low. Basically, when it comes to marketing, if you don't have a huge audience and you don't have a lot of social proof, so you're kind of new to the game, it's very unlikely that people are going to buy anything from you that's over $1,000 without having a phone call with you. Okay. So you'll see a lot of people sell courses for, say, $2,000 with just a click of a button. But those people tend to have 2 things. One, they tend to have a lot of social proof and a pretty good reputation for what they're doing. They often tend to partner with other influencers, and they're often giving $1,000 to that other influencer, like 30% or whatever it is that they're doing if they're doing this huge launch. So you might want to think about what people would actually click a button and pay for. So I think of low price courses as under $1,000 that they're just going to click a button and buy. I think of high ticket courses is you need to have a sales call with them, and then it's going to be above $1,000.
Anything over $1,500 to me is a high ticket, but I think that high ticket includes that coaching component.
Yeah, and I also think it depends on your audience. You've got a loyal audience who've been following you and watching you, who will buy anything of yours. That's a very different position to be in than somebody who's got a cold audience who don't know them, and you're trying to sell them something that's $2,000.
Agreed. The other thing we were going to talk about was imposter syndrome. Basically, we've all dealt with this. It still is a trigger for me, even though I know that I don't need to go to the biggest and the best. It's not always the most expensive. It's not always the most well-known. I need to go to someone that I'm going to relate to and that I feel comfortable with, and that I am going to trust them to get me where I want to go.
Thank you everyone for being here.